All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Right.
Is your phone on?
Can you hear me?
Get a result.
Cliff, can you throw yourself on mute? We're getting a little bit of an echo. Test that out.
Testing.
That was it. All right. Okay. So I will move on to our next item, just the update on the Florida DOGE team report in correspondence to the BOCC. I'll open it up to you guys. Have you heard anything that we haven't? Okay. Me either. So we've not received any update, communication, anything from the state on their DOGE team report. They missed their deadline that they were supposed to provide to the House and the Senate last week, I think it was.
The 13th.
Yeah, I've lost track of days at this point, but 2 weeks ago, yeah. So, I'm operating under the assumption that it's not coming. Maybe it will come at some point, but I'm just going to operate continuously under the assumption that this report isn't coming. And for our purposes down here, let's do our own report. That's the letter that we sent to the commission, basically, that we'd like to present some findings. And then I guess I'll move this to the next point on the agenda here, which is our finding report discussion. My feeling is that we've sent out a letter to the county commission publicly. They all got it, about presenting something at an upcoming meeting, whether it's mid-February at this point, March meeting, whenever they'll have us, when their agenda is a little bit less packed. So I'll open for discussion on where we are right now, but my opinion is that we await formal communication from commissioners. I believe we're really looking for some guidance from Commissioner Miller, since she was the one that created this committee. And then we will operate under the assumption that we're going to put together some sort of final report and bring it to the commission. Open for discussion from everybody else.
I think that's a good idea. I think since we have limited information just based on what the county's provided us, the staff, maybe we should look at maybe doing it tiered, because obviously we're kind of operating, looking through a glass darkly. So we don't have necessarily all the facts. So I don't know that we want to just lob grenades, at the board. So basically, this is what we're very certain of, and this is what's questionable.
Yep.
We would need additional information or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. I think that basically, we would break this report down into categories, right? Kind of like we did going all the way back to September at this point, where we can say, hey, this thing, we could just eyeball and say that looks like waste. And then these are things that we just recommend that the commission looks into. And then another tier of, maybe best practices, because we've talked about some best practices in this committee for the past few months. So putting that all together in a digestible format as well. So, but Fabio,
well, in general, I was going to ask a couple questions on it, because it might be good, as I've said before, I'd like to actually investigate some things and go to details. And in light of news breaking of, extensive fraud in some similar type programs like we have here in Hillsborough County, has the county done anything different to investigate those kind of things? Melinda, I'm thinking you may want to reorient some of your work course, or to be proactive, and that we might recommend or assist in that. For example, I've noticed I follow this very closely in Minnesota, and the contracts, when I go back into our contract database, they're the same contracts. And so I can almost, it doesn't take much skepticism to think that to some extent this could be occurring here. And if the county proactively gets on top of it, or I don't even know if we need to assist. I'm happy to assist, but I can almost guarantee that maybe reorienting some of your resources to follow up on some of these areas. For example, I've mentioned, I don't want to sound like a broken record, about my experience with the homeless services and fire rescue. And so I looked at a couple others, and we apparently have extensive adult daycare facilities that are contracted through with third parties, some nonprofit, others profit making. I'm not sure it matters that much these days. And, an audit of were there really people here, and some audit of this would give us confidence to say, hey, we took a look and we don't see similar type issues of fraud.
Maybe I'm about to take us off a little bit, but where's their funding for? Do we have like a extensive amount of adult daycare?
Well, it's just one thing.
I'm just curious. Is that like part of like our health plan, or do we give out any
We have an aging services department.
Yeah.
Provides services to those folks at facilities programming.
Yeah.
That again, it's all part of the budgeting process. They're actually facilities where people are visiting and participating. And as far as I think, Robert was talking about services that we do here that we do in Minnesota, that was done in Minnesota. If you're thinking about the childcare licensing piece, we don't do that anymore.
Right.
That quit being done here a couple of years ago. So we're not in the same lines of business as Minnesota.
There was a point though when the county was giving like grants to people to take care of their own kids or families' kids. Or is that for you said a couple of years ago we stopped?
No, we had childcare licensing. So he had licensed childcare facilities, which I think that's where he was talking about.
Yeah.
They were inspected. They weren't given money.
Okay.
So it was an inspection process, but the state does the inspection process too. But we were doing it, and because it was duplicative, the county quit doing it. So it's all part of the state's function.
So it's probably good.
There's
Maybe
no money given to anybody for that purpose. No, it's licensing the facility.
Yeah.
Strictly.
it's probably good that it's out in the public that the county isn't funding, personal daycares.
Well, there still is. I couldn't find the exact budget, but there's still a children's services department. And I haven't been able to look in those. I had trouble getting back into the contracts database the last couple of weeks. A few weeks back, I did just to see and I just happened to pick this aging services, I believe, and it's adult, it's adult daycare for, lack of a better term. And have no reason to expect it. But if the county could come up and say, hey, look, we saw what's happening in other areas and we looked into it proactively, and we can say, gee, we've done 10 contracts and we have found no evidence. Wouldn't that be a wonderful thing to do? I think actually would be surprised if you guys haven't already kind of done something like that. And I just happened to pick the adult day. It's called adult day centers. And, we have 18 of them operating in Hillsborough County. And, I just read a contract or two, and they're the same kind of contracts where all we have to do is marshal some auditors and say, okay, who was here 2 months ago? Okay. And then contact those people. Are they real people or not? It's really not that tough to do. And then we can have confidence, and we can go to the public and say, found out, not here. Or, gee, we found one or two, but it's only that. And you guys come up with it, and you look like heroes, because I think otherwise people are going to think with reasonable skepticism, well, we have the same contracts and the same kind of thing, whether it's adult daycare or child services or the homeless services, and some effort to put an audit would give us confidence to say to skeptics that, gee, that's not the case, or hey, there was one or two, we found them and we're going to prosecute, or we might want to change some procedures, but you're ahead of it rather than reacting to something that happened, as it's happened in some other states. And it's just when you see, I've been paying close attention to that development, and it's the same model we have here, which is understandable. It probably is imposed upon us by some of this is federal funding. Some of this is, like, for example, when I read through the affordable housing and the homeless services, those contracts are basically given to us from the feds, the same as it was in other states. And boy, to just kind of go along, and I tried to look in the new budget, but I couldn't really find it. It's, I still don't, I was hoping Tom might be here and he might be better at this, but
So
I would like to-
I agree. So that would go into the kind of what step 2 of this process is going to look like, I think, because, what I think we need to focus on is let's get our report out, right, with our recommendations. And then it's going to be up to the board. How long is this committee for? Do we get a year?
It was up to a year.
Up to a year.
1 year. So
I think it goes back to the conversation we had then of, okay, here's what we found so far in what we do, what we've been doing in this committee, and then going back to the commission and saying, like, look, we either, do you want to keep us around, or because we need to either expand the stuff that we're doing, outside of like what we were chartered or motioned to do, or be disbanded. Basically, those are the two things. We basically either need to get expanded or disbanded. one of those two.
well, actually, I'm not so much concerned about,
Yeah.
I mean, I would recommend putting something like that in this letter. But on the other hand, it might be just, I don't know that it needs to come from us, and I might be wrong with the procedures, you guys tell me, but Melinda, it might be very prudent to take some of your employees and say, hey, look, I'm going to shuffle around our routine stuff. And in light of the revelations of this, I'm going to make sure it's not happening at Hillsborough.
Sure.
You will be a hero.
And what I
Brandon, you'll be a hero. Tom will be a star. The administrator will be a star.
do exactly what you're saying.
Okay, all right. And
All the time. We're
Yeah.
monitoring what's happening in the risk environment.
that's wonderful. And I actually thought that was,
When something is identified that
Yeah.
hey, we need to shift our resources, we do it. And so, I mean, that is very much part of our process. And of course, anything, as I've mentioned before, the meetings, I mean, I'm always paying attention to a lot of the stuff going on. And it's all part of our risk assessment is continuous. But once a year, when I coordinate with the clerk's auditor and we really determine what are those areas, given our resources, I have, basically 3 auditors, and she has approximately 9. And so we come together and, of course, we focus more on performance, not to say, I mean, every audit we do has a compliance component, efficiencies, but they do focus a little bit more on the financial because they're under the, the clerk, comptroller. But we really look at things in the contracts. That is a big part of that process. And Heidi's team, Heidi Penner at the clerk's office, they take a hard look at a lot of those contracts. So I don't know if you've taken a look at their reports, but of course, again, being more of the kind of compliance financial, they do cover a lot of that. But I mean, if something's brought to light and it needs to be looked at, we're going to shuffle things around. I mean, that's the bottom line.
do you have metrics just the last year or two where you could say, hey, look, we did post audits of X number of contracts and all of them were neat and clean, or gee, we found 1 or 2 and we're, if there's some, because when you can measure something, then you know something about it. I don't like to be in the case where you make accusations that may or may not be based. But if you say, that's why I want to look at these contracts, even though it's a small sample size. If you can say, I did 8 contracts or 12 contracts, and so far, hey, things are looking good, and here's, what, release metrics, or maybe you could even report to us and we could say, hey, we're confident, but it might be good to do more of this or less, or.
I would say specifically, I mean, we do look at contracts, like I say, but that's more, generally speaking, that's more of the clerk's audit department that focuses on the contracts.
Well, maybe they could release metrics, because I'm saying what would be great is if we could go, if somebody at the commission or a citizen says, hey, look at this, it's in this state, it's in this state. What do you guys do? You have similar contracts. We could say, and this is be a great thing. look, we looked at 12 contracts last year. Now it's a reasonable sample size. And we also we contacted 47 or 80 recipients. They were all real people. The services were provided. We can give you assurance that there isn't this kind of thing. That would be enormously powerful. And
Sure. And I think to some degree that is being done. Like I say, maybe not exactly the way you're phrasing it, but I mean, and like I say, I mean, we're coming up on our risk assessment. So, we'll be looking at all of this, more granularly in the coming months as well, determining as far as, as we develop our 2027 plans. And as I mentioned, when things change in the risk environment, we do shift things around.
Yeah.
What does your risk assessment process look like? Like, what is it? Like when you said it's coming up. So what is that?
Sure. So generally we kick it off in May. And we start with, again, all year long, we're documenting risks. We have kind of like an ongoing emerging risks log where I might attend a meeting and be like, hey, this is something we need to keep our eye on. If it rises to the level of changing the plan, then, we get with the commissioners and we say a risk came up, we need to take action now. Okay. But generally speaking, the traditional process is we send a survey out to all of the department directors and have them complete that survey. And that's mainly just to really understand any changes that might have occurred in the organization, changes in leadership. We do have a question on there, was there any reported fraud? It's for us to really obtain an understanding. Now, we do have we do track, compared to the prior year, compared to the last 3 years, any change in a risk score, within a department from 1 year to the next. And then we drill down and understand, well, why did that risk score change? And then we'll, dig a little bit deeper into those questions to understand that.
Is is the risk scoring like per year public?
I mean, we don't put it on our website per se, but I mean, we have it in our work papers.
Well, that's interesting to me. I'm curious, over the past so many years, are there certain departments that are like higher risk score? And that's not something you guys are going to come out and broadcast or anything, but in this committee, maybe.
Sure. And sometimes that happens. And, a lot of times it may be, maybe when there's a department director change, you know what I mean? And they might answer the questions a little bit differently, or they might view certain questions a little bit differently. And so that may prompt that. I mean, another thing that we try to include in the survey is, kind of what are those big things happening? So the last year we asked a little bit about, with AI and, what are you kind of thinking about from an AI perspective? What are the processes in place that, and so part of the survey, we have our traditional questions, but then we add some questions as well to understand, as things are evolving, what are the departments thinking? So we can kind of get ahead of that. But that's really the first step that we do. We get those results back, we analyze the results, and then we have a series of risk discussions. That starts with the senior staff. We meet with them and, talk to them about, what are some things that you're seeing in the organization, some things that we should consider as we, proceed with our planning. And then they of course share information with us. From there, we meet with the external financial auditors, talk to them. What are risks are you seeing, kind of from an external financial perspective, not only within our organization, but just in local government in general.
None of this includes any of the constitutional?
No.
Or do they do their own process that's similar to this?
I'm not aware of their process or how they approach this. So I'm only familiar with what. Is
this like a score like 0 to 100 kind of thing? Or is it like 1 to 10? Like how do
it's 1 to 5. I mean, we have different scores, but for the part.
So there's like a survey that goes out, they fill it out.
Yeah, and you get 1 to 5.
What you're speaking about, is this like sort of the standard piece of the audit function? Do you do anything like additional or, a part? I mean, and I'm pretty familiar with all of the things you're talking about just as a CPA, but do you do anything sort of special or different being a government entity? Or
I would say, different. Some of the other things that we do, we've designed what's called a risk assurance map. Which that's not really different from government, but that's one exercise that we started a couple of years ago. Again, understanding, what are those other assurance functions within the organization? It's not all audit, right? You have your, second line. And so kind of piecing that together and understanding how, you know what I mean, what risks they might be monitoring and so forth. You know, one of the other things that we do is, you know, we analyze any unauthorized transactions, which kind of goes back to, Robert, your contract discussion.
Yeah.
You know, anytime that there is a purchase that maybe occurs outside of a contract, or we get all those and we do a pretty comprehensive analysis. And that is also considered, you know, in terms of what contracts we might look at or the works audit department.
Who would investigate whether like in the case of adult daycare, for example, that a client or a recipient actually attended? I mean, do your guys double check, you know, just pick 10 randomly and say, hey, did you attend this day? Or are you really, a person, or is that the department that administers it? And because summing up those metrics would be helpful. And two reasons, actually three. One is, I don't want to be the bad guy here, but I guarantee you will hear this from other people in Hillsborough County, and it's something to get ahead of. And two is just the fact, my experience with auditing is just the fact that somebody's checking makes 98% of any fraud disappear, never happen in the first place. Just the fact that somebody goes in and calls John Smith, we paid this vendor $87 a day. Were you here these days? And, or do you even exist, and that kind of stuff? Is that the department that administers it? Is that your order? Is that?
Well, I would say the first line, the department should be doing that.
Yeah.
But if we did an audit, you know, that's certainly something that we would do in our audit procedures.
Because reading the contracts, at least some of them, again, I've only read 8 or 10 or 12 contracts. It's a small sample size, but there's requirements to list the name of the people in the homeless services. And just a few spot checks, do those people really exist? Then we can say, we're taking action. We checked this and we're not paying for people who weren't there or people who don't exist. And
But to your point though, is that, I mean, you guys do a, big financial audit every year. Is that process included in that, or is it really just strictly financial?
That's the external financial auditors are separate from us.
Yeah.
So like I say, we meet with them, we talk to them, but their focus, I mean, they do look at a lot of this, but of course their materiality is much higher than, what we would.
Yeah. But they're not going out and like actually investigating, like they're not going out to make sure that there's not a clearing center.
Yeah, no, their focus is on financial statements and ensuring,
Do you have internal control assessments?
Internal control assessments. I mean, every audit that we do a very in-depth internal control assessment. Like it's pretty extensive actually. Yeah.
so you must do, or departments must do reporting in their annual, like, hey, we helped 127 people at this, with these, some of that reporting, and also who would double check or audit those. And I don't mean to pick on you. I know your focus would be more financial oriented, but this is kind of part of that. If we're being billed for services that were never provided, that's, a big deal. And with the extensiveness and the similarity, I think it would be worthwhile. And I'm not even trying to make a lot of work for some. I'm willing to help. That's why what I would like to do is go and audit some of these contracts that I've read and to see, I'm sure that somebody has done this before, or that required by the contracts are names of people and when they were in the shelters, or addresses of rehabbed affordable housing. And, just go to them.
I mean, I agree with you,
Bob. Rehabbed and
Bob, I
on the
do.
door and is somebody there? I'm happy to do that.
But I agree with you. I just think it goes back to, I agree with you. And I just think it goes back to we need to get our, abilities expanded a bit. If this is going to be a very effective and efficient committee going forward, we either need to expand our powers. But if they won't, if the commission doesn't want us to do that, then, that you're going to end up wanting to do it with a YouTube.
We can do it now.
Yeah.
I can do it now. I just want to, I contact either people in the department or an audit and talk to if somebody's already doing it, boy, that's fabulous.
I mean,
Not, maybe they can
I don't
start.
think,
I think we can do it
I
now.
don't think anybody can stop, I mean, like, when you're talking about stuff that's in Minnesota, I mean, you're talking about a, kid who was 21 walking up with a YouTube channel and a camera. So, I mean, like, there's nothing stopping you from poking in and.
That has crossed my mind, but I don't want to,
But as far as an official, I can't condone, but,
I'm not I just
Amanda, you-
thought that the county getting ahead of this. And there's no sense in redoing this. If somebody's already doing it, well, that's great. Publicize it or report it. And then we can say, look, we're on top of this, and you get ahead of something like this, because I can almost guarantee that to some extent, the way these contracts are written, unless somebody's auditing this, there is to some degree, but like casting aspersions when I don't know.
sure.
If I contact people and I say, people in the department say, oh yeah, it's John Smith and this Smith Jones buddy, and we checked this guy, and we did typical audit. You 10 or 20 at random and audit it. I know it's a lot of work for you guys. They maybe already be doing it, but then as I say, when you can measure something, then we can know about it. We're not just casting aspersions. I don't want to cast aspersions. I think everybody's probably doing a great job.
Yeah.
So
Amanda, you, go ahead.
do we know, since we serve at the pleasure of the Board of the Commissioners, do we know what their position is sort of on this? Have we gotten any feedback as far as expanding what we're doing, or, anything like that?
So I think that this comes back to the original part of this discussion, which is they're going to want to see what we've done here, right? Like, if we come out with a report and say, hey, here's what we've done, here's what we found, and we can point to a number or some other things that have maybe been improved in some processes that recommendations of ours and everything, they might look at it and say, hey, you guys have been a useful committee and you could save us money and you can keep saving us money. Now, I think that number is very low, but I think that they're going to want to know. And when I'll explain in a second when I mean low, but I think they're going to want to see if we are efficient, right? And are we costing a lot of money for staff to go and sit in on our meetings, and are we spending, staff resources to go and inquire about this and that and this and that. So, but back to one of the reoccurring themes in here, I don't know how much we measure, staff hours that have been dedicated to DOGE. Have we measured that at all? Like how much staff hours have been dedicated to
track? We can do that. There's only been 6 meetings. We
Yeah.
can do some rough estimates, but again, we're not doing 15-minute time clock on how much time we're spending on this.
Yeah, but I think that that's going to be the general question, right? Like, are we spending a lot of county resources on the efficiency committee? And then from there, like, okay, we can keep this thing going because, hey, they recommended to us. I think the answer is like, I don't think we spent $1 million on this committee. Maybe we have, but I doubt we spent $1 million on this committee. So it's like, if we can save $1 million, that's an extremely small drop in the bucket comparatively to what the budget is. I think we're pretty useful. So if we can recommend to them $50 million or $100 million or $500 million one day, like, that's pretty useful, part of time, I think.
Not to like divert
Jake,
too
I'm
far.
in complete support of going to the commission with your thing and saying,
Yeah.
hey, we're going to do this. But I think we can do stuff too. I mean, we can do this stuff now and then have, even, well, hey, here's something we've actually done.
I think that could be part of what our report
Yeah.
looks like,
Yeah. I mean,
with further, I mean, we can have a section of,
Yeah.
stuff we can do. And this commission meeting isn't tomorrow. So we've got
Yeah.
probably a month or so between now and then. If there's anything you want to do in between then to add to this report, I think we can. And then even, hey, we want to even look more into these things and then.
well, you give me an example. For example, there's one thing I did was when I looked at fire rescue. It's a big place where and I think I've told you before, the fireboat that's in the South Bay. Gee, I know where Land's End Marine is. So I went up, I have a picture. There's the boat. It's in the slip. And I talked to the guys at Land's End. Gee, what do you charge me for a slip that's 40 feet by an extra wide? Because this is a multi-hull. And they're paying reasonable, and the contract rates are what their reasonable charges are. So the first time I audited that, it's not much effort, but it's something. And things look great. So I can say, look, they're not paying for a fancy slip. It needs to be accessible. It needs to be this, and they're paying the market rates. So it's nobody's taking advantage of, and I see that's good, pretty good.
I agree.
Likewise with the construction, just so happens we have a new fire station in Apollo Beach. So sure enough, that's in the contract. There's this new fire station. So that's another thing that so far, the two things I've done myself.
They're there.
are good.
Yeah.
And with these other things, it's a little more difficult because it involves recipients or it involves other addresses that aren't that close to me. I'm happy to do that, but it's probably already being done, I suspect, by either these departments or Melinda, some of your people, or the others. You mentioned the other. And I just, some of those metrics would give us confidence that, gee, we don't need to change things up dramatically because people are already on top of it.
Yeah.
Or, okay, in light of the prominence of this in other areas, maybe we step up a little bit here and shift some resources and look, and then we can say it rather than just in theory, because it happens someplace else. We can say, look, we haven't found much, we have found much, and the county can get ahead of it. And you guys look like heroes. Seriously, I'm not.
Amanda, you had something you wanted to say?
I don't remember what it was.
Okay.
Sorry.
I wanted to make sure she
Thanks,
gets.
Bob.
I'm sorry, man. I don't mean to talk so much, guys. I just,
Oh, I remember what I was going to ask. So because there's been, announcements in the media and this report's coming out and the report's going to be provided, like at some point, can we expect that to be addressed, or are we just going to pretend it never happened? Like, do we know?
I mean, I would put it as like line 1 in our report. Like, we have not received any. I mean, genuinely, like that's the first thing on this agenda every week is update on the Florida DOGE team report, and we had no updates in 6 months.
Then
So
there's very specific numbers being announced, things like that. I don't know at what point, like, can we expect it to be addressed?
I think that we can address it, and that's kind of the point that I think that we need to get across is that the state can do what they want. They can do media hits and they can talk numbers and all that kind of stuff. That's fine. If they do come out with a report, they come out with a report and we can address it then. I think there's going to be plenty of crossover between things that we've talked about in this committee and things that they're going to find. I don't think it's going to be that much different personally if they do come out with a report.
Yeah.
But for our purposes, like we can sit around and twiddle our thumbs for a year and, they're not going to do it. So we should just put it up. It should be one of the first lines. Hey, we have not gotten a state report. That is why we're here giving you a local report. We would give you a state report if we had one.
and that's absolutely accurate. And that should be the first line. But we can also do something.
Yeah.
I mean, we've been waiting for a third of our period here and we haven't actually done much yet. And it's fair, absolutely fair that if some of these things depend on the state report, but there's other things.
Well, I wanted to go crazy about, I think a bunch of us want to go crazy, but Brandon, you've, explained to us that like our scope has been limited, right?
So is what the board authorized.
And so I would love to be able to call up people and do all this, like as far as.
When I read that, government efficiency.
Yeah.
That's in our scope.
And I think that's part of our report to expand.
I'm not a rabble rouser guy, as you guys know, but to contact,
either, Bob.
each contract has an administrator's name. And there are forms that are supposed to be completed as to, what homeless people were sheltered where. And my other was when I read that, it looks like it's reporting and 4 or 5 levels of reporting. So much of the money is used for reporting and administration that little goes to a portion. I think I see that, but not sure. But then also now when I see how this has occurred, I've read very closely of these, and not just, I don't want to pick on any other state, but it would behoove us to, if we're not already doing some of these audits, to do some, and just have a reasonable sample size.
Bob, I think that
And it may already be happening. I just want to contact.
I think
people and
your
look
point,
at it
I think your point's well received. I think I agree. And
without
to
disrupting or making new. I don't want to see anything that doesn't already exist either, guys.
So I think,
Yeah.
I think from, our focus right now, let's try to get this report out, right? That's and in that time, I don't think we can take an official action in this committee and say this committee is going to go do that. But I think that it's well within your rights to call up one of the contracts between now and the next month and see if there's people there or go show up. I think it's well within your
I've
your rights to do it.
done it once or twice.
That's what I said.
So
So
what
you
does
know-
the report process look like as far as
Willing.
constructing it, how that would go down, how it would be delegated, what it would look like?
So that's actually a question. I have a kind of an idea in my head what this looks like, but Brandon, I kind of need some guidance on this. Like what I imagine is this is kind of like a group report like we do in college, right? Like where we get together and we kind of like compare our PowerPoint notes and we sit around and we kind of like put it all together. But how do we do that without breaking any sunshine rules here? Do we call like a workshop for ourselves to come in and put it all together?
You could do it, there's a couple ways to do it if you're going to do a report.
Yeah.
Do it in a setting like this where, let's say at the next meeting, you decide we're going to construct this and put that all together. Or you can do it via a process as you did with the letter to the board, which is you can start out with a framework. It can go out and seek input and then create a product and go from there. It's really up to you. Again, we're kind of in uncharted territories because it's something that wasn't contemplated, but that's how I would suggest.
Because it would make sense to me. I understand the process because like the process with like even writing a letter is like, oh, let me send it to you. You send it to them. They look over it. Then they send it back, and then so it's very formal.
You can do that in this.
Can we do that? Like, I mean, like basically, I mean, I think that we have a much more efficient process as the Government Efficiency Committee to like sit around and work dynamically and say, here's what we're doing, and not have to like email chain back and forth.
It's a public meeting. It's publicly noticed. It's open. So yes, you can absolutely.
We can call a committee meeting with just the committee. I don't even think we need the staff. I mean, because it's not going to be a question, a question answer type of situation. I mean, we're happy to hand it to you guys when we're done, but I think that the committee should be meeting.
As long as you do it like we're doing here, we'll give you a conference room. Well, it's open. So,
Yeah.
yeah, absolutely. That's fine.
Does it have to be broadcast as well under our, like while we're working?
Doesn't have to be broadcast. It just needs to be publicly
Open.
noticed, which we'll take care of.
And we have to keep minutes.
The podcasting is available for in case a member needs to
Yeah.
participate, or if there's just kind of by practice now because of the post-COVID world. So
Yeah.
that's why we do it. Does it have to be broadcast? Absolutely not. And most aren't.
Okay. So
And just to answer your question, as you can tell, I'm not Julia. I'm just in Justice office. Just to answer your question, there do need to be minutes under the Sunshine Law. You do have to comply. It has to be noticed. There has to be an opportunity to be heard. So there would have to be minutes as well to comply under Sunshine Law.
So we can either.
Really good at minutes.
Minutes, or we can have someone here keep minutes.
it's just like this. Yeah. Okay. I mean, in my head, what I think we should be doing is we should come up with, a time and date that all works for us, that we publicly notice a meeting, I guess, but we, the 5 of us can get together, compare notes. Like this is a college project, right? We're going to come up with a final report to present to the commission teachers that like, here's my section, your section, your section, your section. And we put it all together and come up with a final product. And that might take a couple hours for us to do. And like I said, I don't need to burden staff with that. I don't even think, it's necessary. I think it's going to be more of us collaborating and getting a PowerPoint done. Right.
Well, for purposes of minutes, I mean, we don't need to engage you, but if you want someone here to make sure your minutes are done.
Yeah.
And then to make sure that you have the ability to participate virtually in case somebody does need.
Yeah.
We can set that. We can just do this meeting. And the agenda is literally to put the report together.
Yeah.
And let you do your thing. Yeah. And that's where it goes.
Okay. So does that sound good to everybody else on the committee?
And we'll review this at the next meeting, this letter, or beforehand, you think?
Well, basically, I want to do. I want a workshop. Basically, we'll create a PowerPoint. If we have to present to the board, and then maybe some other graphics and line items, things like that, and then we can have a official meeting to approve it, right? Or can we approve it in that workshop?
It's an official
Okay.
meeting.
Yeah.
That's your agenda is to craft
Okay.
something.
So we don't need to meet again before. We can basically call a workshop, get this thing done.
Meeting. We'll just schedule another meeting. Don't even call it a workshop.
I like it.
Workshops you can't vote.
Okay.
Yeah, at a workshop, you can't
And a
take
meeting,
official action.
A workshop meeting. Okay.
So
But your only focus is that.
Guys, could I ask, and I'm not sure who to, Brandon and Melinda, you guys, before our next meeting, could you guys contact the aging services or homeless services along these lines and see if there are metrics that they record
Let's you all.
so that we can
work first,
know something. Yeah, but we're writing a report when we don't really know.
but that's not within the scope. I understand.
I think it is
I understand government efficiencies in the title, but
Yeah.
the scope is what the board approved in its motion, which is to work with the county in responding to the state audit report.
So they're giving us like a very small sliver of like
You don't have. a state
leniency.
report.
They're giving us leniency at least to give them something,
Anyway,
you know, which
Yeah.
I agree with you. That we know
I'll
what
tell
we're
you
going
what,
to do.
I don't want to make work for you guys. Just let me contact the department head and just ask about a couple of these contracts. I'm happy to do the work. I'm not trying to make work for anybody.
Citizen, you're welcome to call whoever you'd like to call. I mean, seriously,
I know,
you
but
can't call as a representative of this entity, but as an individual, if you'd like to make a call, you're welcome to do that. But we really are trying to stay within the scope because we have responsibilities as staff to the board too. And Melinda's not part of the county administration. She is her own entity that reports to the Board of County Commissioners. So we have a responsibility to make sure. that
Even
we're
better
doing
reason.
Where it's authorized.
right. And I don't need to pick on you guys. I'm just thinking, good Lord, this is going to come up from somebody else. You got to get ahead of it. And we can, and then we know something about it.
I think he'd be, like I said,
All right,
just
all right.
go off and call them. I really do. They just call them and
Well,
come back to our
a
workshop.
little bit. I'm
Yeah.
thinking about it, but look, I'm not a wild-eyed pistol waver here. I don't want to rock the boat. I guarantee you that this is going to come up. And if you guys get ahead of it, you'll be stars.
All we're trying to, all I can tell you is this. This is not Minnesota. This organization is highly structured with two sets of independent auditing teams that assess it on a constant basis between Melinda's team, who she reports to the county, Board of County Commissioner. She does not report to the administrator. She does not report to the county attorney. The county attorney is independent. They don't report to the administrator. They report to the board, which is different than a lot of other places. Whenever there's funds that are moved, the clerk's office has to do them. We don't cut checks. The clerk cuts checks. There are contracts. There are reviews of contracts. There's extensive practices in place, both from a performance standpoint and from a financial standpoint. So all I'm saying to you as staff is we have to follow where the board has said that this committee is authorized to go and work with you on that. I think staff has been very flexible in providing information that's been asked for in a timely manner, in a complete manner. We're going to continue to do that. You're asking the board for additional authorizations, which you're entitled to do. But when it comes to today, the purpose was to work with us in responding to the state on its DOGE process. Thus far, you've done that and we've done that, including additional questions, which we've been happy to answer. But from our perspective, that's where we have to stay until or unless the board tells us something otherwise.
And that's why we're going to the board and basically saying, here's what we
I
got.
fully
Now we
support
want to
going
go
the
farther, right?
Fully support going to the board. It'd be
Yeah.
nice to show them that we've done something in the last 4 months,
Yeah.
5 months.
So, Cliff, do you have any comment? I think we haven't heard from you today on this plan here to go to the board.
No, I think it's a good plan. I'm on mute because I didn't want to override anything, but it sounds like a good way to go forward.
Okay. I just wanted to hear from you.
Can I ask a couple of questions on the audit, please? Do you mind?
Sure.
I just wanted to pick your brain a little bit. Because I'm thinking about long-term repercussions, well after this board is dissolved, right? You had mentioned risk and audit, right? And I noticed that risk kind of falls under the chief financial administrator. Is that accurate?
You're referring to risk management. So their focus is more so on insurance and, risk from making sure that we have adequate insurance coverage. They manage all of the, like the property that might need to get insured, as well as liability, cybersecurity insurance. So that is their focus.
I see. Okay.
Predominantly.
So I was wondering, because I'm not the expert here, I probably need to lean on Amanda a little bit. Would there be, because I'm looking from a financial perspective, right? They're publicly traded organization, they're highly regulated. How do they operate? Not that, public and private have to be parallel, but they do have some best practices we could glean from. So I'm wondering if it'd be worth time to explore a chief financial officer, similar to like a largely regulated industry. Everybody has a CFO, right? Or a chief compliance officer, typically, that, as you had said, reports directly to the board of directors. And in that entity, you do have enterprise risk, not just audit risk, and you do have auditors as well. Like the auditor is a piece of that. I wonder if that would be worth exploring, because long term, just like Bob said, where is the quality control on contracts? I think we identified that early on in our meeting. Like nobody has time or bandwidth to get down to the deliverable, right? So what if we restructured the county? I know that's a scary word, right?
Well, I think what I would say is similar to the CEO, that's the county administrator, and the CFO, I would consider Tom Fessler for the organization. So although they don't have the same title, that's, you know what I mean? We do have that function. And as far as, it's, at the regulation standpoint, we are audited just like a publicly traded company. So we have external auditors, we have internal auditors, and, a lot of the stuff I wanted to mention too is, some of these services are largely funded by grants. Grants have a whole nother layer of auditing of external auditors. So, there is actually a fair amount of oversight. And as Brandon mentioned, the clerk's office in and of itself, aside from the audit department, does a review of all the contracts and the payments. And so I guess that's, if
So in
that's
the form of efficiency, could you see any value in potentially collecting them all under one single entity that reports directly to the Board of County Commissioners, similar to the task organization of the internal auditor? Like if we change the internal auditor to the chief compliance officer and then we just read it out from there, do you see any value in consolidating?
I guess I wouldn't see it so different. At this point, that like Tom Fessler, the chief financial, but I would consider the chief financial officer reports to the county administrator, and the county administrator reports directly to the board. And so I guess right offhand, I wouldn't see a huge benefit to like restructuring in that respect.
Even if they expanded a little bit to be able to get down to, deliverables for contracts or grant money or anything like that.
I just, speaking offhand, generally speaking, I'm not really in an abstract way,
I understand.
but
I think that if that's a discussion that we want to have on, or, maybe exploring recommendations, that's a kind of the thing we would put in a report, basically, right? Like, hey, we looked at this and maybe you guys can consider restructuring. We won't use big scary words, but like,
I can already see the format of the report in my head.
Yeah.
Like for statute, the county administrator is the chief financial officer of the county. And so
What
it's a
about a
responsibility.
compliance officer though? Like who is the chief compliance officer?
Well, really, Melinda fills that role because she's the.
Well, audit and risk are completely separate.
Well, we have a risk team,
yeah,
yes.
And another thing that I'll say is we work very closely with, and as I mentioned earlier, we've designed this like risk assurance map, but we have a quarterly meeting that we hold with everyone that we view as assurance providers outside of our office. We meet with them, we talk about risk, what's going on in the organization. So I guess what I would say, could we have a chief compliance, type of a deal, given that layer? And then you got to consider the clerk. The clerk does a lot of compliance within their organization and oversight over.
And there could be like a dotted line relationship, you know what I mean?
And so they, again, I can't speak for the clerk's organization, but they may have something similar to that, or maybe exploring something like that. But as Jake mentioned, that certainly, any ideas that you guys have, I'm sure you could, put in your report and
Melinda, that clerk,
Real quick, when you're thinking about what you're going to do, remember kind of the mandate that the board gave. You're asking them for permission to go a little further, but you're asking them to go a little further based on some of the things that you've done in terms of some discussion and question and answer. It's really supposed to be based on the state report. We don't have a state report. But I would also caution not walk up and say, we think there's all kinds of this going on without. Yeah, because I mean, there's a lots of ideas and could be, would be, should be, but that's not necessarily the case. And so I would just urge caution before going to the board in not part, but casting aspersions when.
I want to do that.
I think
I
it
would
would
ask
be a
the
very,
question first, do you want us to go any further? And if they do want you to go further, where would you like us to go? And if they don't, thank you for the opportunity to serve, and we're going to go home. And it's just, I think define what you're asking and why you're asking it. Useful because
I agree. Yeah, I agree. I think that, I expect our report and presentation of the report to be statesmanlike and not so aggressive or cast
so
aspersions.
we'll see what
I wanna do-
brings. If she's asking you to make a verbal presentation, then she can, so obviously make that invitation. If not, it would be something that you would submit to the board, a la what you did with the letter.
Yeah,
And that's where it would be.
that is not my preference, by the way. Just, I like sending these letters out to the commission. I like them all very much, but they kind of just are like, oh, we got a letter from the DOGE committee. And then kind of have to bug them a little more to get something out of them, right? So I don't really want to do a report that falls on deaf ears. And
No, I understand. Just based upon,
how we do this. Yeah, in my head, we present it verbally on video publicly.
I think
And
that
it's-
we should do a report regardless. I
Yeah.
mean, and then utilize that for a presentation. Whether or not that becomes an opportunity or not, then you have sort of both,
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to cast it, but we would phrase it something like, gee, we've seen in other areas, similar contracts and, we'd like to investigate them. Gee, how are these audited? And I'm not sure it sounds too mealy-mouthed, but I don't like to, that's why. Can I ask one question, Linda? You mentioned Heidi Penner. Is that the clerk's office audit function?
Yes.
All right. Would you think it's out of scope to contact? Because maybe they're doing some of this,
I would
follow up on these
just
things.
looking at their website, they post all of their reports, their annual audit plan. I would take a look. They have quite a few reports out there. I would definitely, with kind of everything you've mentioned,
Yeah.
I would take a look at all of the reports.
And you could talk.
Could I just ask, alert these guys? I don't want to get anybody. If some of these, aging services and the adult day, the only reason I picked the adult daycare is it's the similar kind of thing. You give an organization money to provide services to people. You ever check that they actually provide services and that these people exist? Because it's been so abused in other areas, not just one state. You see it 3 or 4 times. Just reading the contracts, we have the same, it's the same contract and it's, you can alert them because they're probably already doing it. And it's
Send
not-
me the list, or we can talk about the list afterwards. I'll drive by on the way home. We'll make sure.
Yeah, well, all right. And
I genuinely,
I've just looked at 12, and Brandon, really, I don't want to, I've only read 10 or 12 contracts. I'll read, but it's such a small, we got so many contracts. It's such a small sample size, but just any thoughtful and reasonably skeptical person reading this and knowing the environment thinks, and there's probably precautions already being taken. So we could just say, hey, they're doing a great job. They're going to do a little bit more maybe, or that's an advice. Or it may be, it's the way you guys get ahead of it. And because somebody's going to ask this.
Melinda, I actually have a question follow up on the risk assessment thing to kind of what we're talking about here. Is there, or have there been any departments? Do you rank them by departments, right? That's how it's done, like a risk assessment? you were saying?
Right. We do it at the department level, the risk assessment, but then of course, the audits that we pick are more of process driven.
So-
within the department.
Have there been any over the past 5-6 years now that have been like really like they needed like action taken regarding the risk? Like that you could like think of off the top of your head?
I would say we did one a couple of years ago related to the fire sprinkler contract.
Mhm.
And probably one of the bigger recommendations we had around that was being handled, that was decentralized. So basically, the departments themselves were, kind of managing that. So it's being managed by multiple departments, which resulted in a fair amount of risk. 'Cause, I mean, your fire sprinkler system, we want to make sure that those are being inspected and that there's, proper oversight and whatnot. And so a recommendation from there was that all gets centralized under facilities. And so just off the top of my head, that's an example of a contract that our office.
Like identified, moved somewhere else, and then but not from an efficiency standpoint. Like when you talk about risk though, like is there any part in that survey questionnaire on how this is measured of like around efficiency, or is it's strictly like more of a compliance thing?
There's absolutely efficiency questions, and in every audit that we do, I mean, efficiency is a huge part of it.
So how many departments do we have like that you do that for?
Approximately, I'm just going to say 43 off the top of my
Okay.
head, but that's about how many surveys we send out.
So are they all in like a easy folder to like send to us that you could just say like here's the reports for like last year, like in like are they ranked like this is the riskiest department like to the least risky?
We have a large risk assessment analysis file where we have all the
I
departments
promise I'll read them if you make them available.
and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious to what it looks like, and if there are departments that are like, riskier than others, and why they are, that's interesting to me.
Sure. Well, I mean, the departments that do have, I mean, one of our questions is, do you handle big, large contracts?
Sure.
And those do get rated as higher risk.
So is much to ask to just like send us the file to the committee as a follow-up to before we get started?
No, I can get that sent to you guys.
I'm just curious. to see.
Brandon, should I send it to you to get sent over or?
Whatever's more efficient. If you want to just send it to us, Leslie can send it out.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Okay, yep.
Yeah, that way we always stay with one
Yeah,
communication.
yep.
Is that okay?
Okay, thank you. All right. So I think, we're going to talk pretty extensively about what's in our report when we actually schedule a meeting workshop to do this all together and everything. One of the things I wanted to bring up that's not on the agenda today is commission just did this whole indigent healthcare plan workshop, right? And I was like, we all should watch that, right? To see what's going on with that thing, because, when we look through these contracts and I look at the numbers, the healthcare side of it is astronomical compared to some of the other contracts that we see. Like every contract is like just such a larger number. And then there's a debate going on the efficiency of this healthcare plan the county has. So I kind of wanted to bring it up as I watched this thing and like I am not convinced, one, that we don't have illegal immigrants in that we're covering in the healthcare plan. I'm going to guess it's pretty inefficient. We really haven't dug into the healthcare side of it too hard, but just seeing what I've seen on top line numbers on some of these things we brought up, these oral surgeons that are making $7 million a year. And so like there's a lot in the healthcare plan, and there's also some philosophical questions on this tax still going out to the county and everything, and the debate on whether or not they should keep it or not, or send it back out to ballot and everything. I think that's within our scope to kind of discuss as like being efficient. Is this, we're the only county in the state that has this.
That doesn't relate to interacting with the state on the DOGE liaison report. So
Yeah.
again, I'm going to, from staff perspective, encourage you all to stay focused on the authorization that the county commission gave you. And if they choose to give you something else, then they can empower you to do so, but also caution what you're bringing and how you're bringing this forward, because we just had a workshop on it. There was no action taken at that point.
Yeah.
I would just urge caution.
Can I ask, I don't see anything that we are subordinate to the state report in this letter from the commissioners. I mean, I don't want to argue, Brandon. I just said, and I think we should be. I agree. So the first thing we say is we haven't got this state report and we want to build on that. But when I see this letter, I don't see any reference to that. And I think that we could be doing.
That's what the letter that was?
Now, this is the letter that said that Board of County Commissioners has confirmed your appointment, DOGE Liaison Committee, and just has a sentence or two about government efficiency and your willingness to dedicate time and energies. You know, and so I read that as now maybe I'm taking liberties, but I read that as a broad venue. And again, without being disruptive or making a lot of nonsensical work I agree, Jake, I'm not. Yeah, that's the first thing we say. Brandon, that's the first thing. But we can be working in other areas. If you look at what that state report did. You know, they're focused on a lot of stuff. We haven't spent. They did such a thorough job. DEI, they're all over that. We don't need to read that. But some of these, like, you know, homeless services and aging services, they're just the only two kinds of contracts I've read. And we can. The reverb here. But we can do something, and I'm just inquiring, gee, what already exists, so we know maybe where to look or what kind of recommendations to make. And you know, suppose I write an email to the head of aging services and say, gee, can you guys just tell me what kind of audit procedures you follow? When I read the contracts, I see this form, and are these public? They, you know, tell me what you do, but I don't want to do that without, you know, you guys blessing. I don't want to cause disruption or anything. You guys do.
Brandon, do you have a response, or I Cliff, do you want to chime in?
I feel like.
I'll let you.
Well, I would agree. I think that it's broader than the only going after and interpreting what the state does. I think we have the ability to do more. And, you know, I don't know what the best way to get in front of the commission to get that. I was hoping to see a response to the letter that Jake wrote.
Yeah. Because my argument would be, like, for example, I focused on fire rescue because that wasn't in the scope of the state. So, okay, there's some place we can add value, and, you know, but I will go with the general consensus here, guys. I just want to argue that we can be doing something rather than just talking. I'm happy to do it myself too, to some extent, that my limited abilities.
So should we try and schedule our meeting?
I think we should try to schedule a meeting for trying to put this whole thing together, and then also anticipate that we can get, you know, February. What are the two dates for the February meetings?
They meet on February 4th and February 18th.
So does February 18th seem like enough time for this committee to put together this report? Up to you guys. I mean, I think that's enough time, but.
Yeah. You're talking about the 18th?
The 18th is this two commission meetings from now.
Yeah.
So trying to set that as a deadline on the 18th.
Yeah.
I think it would depend on when we're going to meet. I feel like that's a tight timeline.
It's up to you guys. I mean,
Next meeting after that is Wednesday, March 4th. Is the first March, and it's the only meeting in March.
okay. Well, this committee, I mean, I think I can work with the 18th, but I can also work with the 4th if you guys want to have a.
You mean March
More
4th?
time.
What's that?
think that's
I'm always
plenty.
going to take more time.
Take more time. Okay.
Yeah.
So then let's aim for March 4th as a deadline for ourselves here, and then come up with a day that works for us to get together, knowing it's going to be probably one of our longer meetings. because we're going to be kind of coming to the table with everything we want to put in this report. So we want to continue to do daytime, middle of the day, morning to do this for everybody?
Sure.
Okay. So let's give ourselves a couple of weeks, but how does the week between the 9th and the 13th look for everybody?
February.
A really terrible week for me.
Terrible week for you?
I'm okay with,
I'm okay.
I have one date in there I can't, but the other 4 should be fine.
We could do, well, this February 16th, is that, or 17th or 18th, that third week of February?
I'm good with 17, 18, 19, or 20.
It's President's Day.
I'm just
on the 16th.
wondering-
Are you guys,
If we should try and meet before that, that way it gives us more time for a report.
Rebecca, are you totally out the week of the 9th through the 13th?
So
So
I'll be actually out of pocket completely the 12th through the 15th, but I can maybe make something work on Monday or Tuesday, 9th or 10th.
Does the 9th and 10th of February work for you, Bob?
Yes.
As well. Cliff, how are February 9th and 10th for you to meet on the workshop to get the report done? Cliff, are you there? You're
The
sorry.
9th is good, the 10th is not good.
Said not good?
The 9th is good, the 10th is not good.
9th is good. Okay. How is the 9th for everybody? Then can we agree
That
on the
works for me.
9th, 10 a.m.? Okay. So the 9th at 10 a.m. What I would like this committee to do is come prepared to work on that one, and we'll bring all of the items that we really want to include on this, and we can have longer discussions and expect that it's gonna be a longer meeting, so we can come up with a final product, and I'll kind of get some sort of structure together on what this looks like, and if it's PowerPoint, some other things, and we'll make it look nice, but everybody come with and that gives plenty of time to call everybody along the way, all the daycares.
Yeah.
Before
Well,
we gotta get
Get your
several
report
weeks.
ready.
So,
Want to be, we could write it as,
so we'll get it all done. I think that that's the plan here. And then going forward with, okay, so that's February 9th. It gives us time to then kind of
Right.
speed it up back and forth a little bit. We can send it. We would just need this room, I guess.
you'll have the exact same setup.
Same setup.
We'll have the virtual ready for a member that may or may not be able to be here. But we won't do, we will.
Full Zoom recording, all that stuff, or like the YouTube recording and all that stuff.
No,
We don't need to do that.
This is a feed, like people can join in, but we won't activate that part.
Okay.
But you will have a structured agenda because as the attorney's office says, we have
Sure.
to do all those things, but we'll set that up.
Yes,
this is a working meeting where we'll have a draft that will.
it is going to be us actually working. Like
Working,
we're
yeah,
we're
right,
doing it.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Go through everything. And I guess,
So they can see what they're writing.
And we could definitely do that. I'll get Cody to do that.
We'll set it up where you have keyboard and mouse and actually work off the screen and see it, so not huddled around.
Okay.
That, if that would help.
Okay.
Help you.
yeah. Yeah, I imagine this, like, as a presentation to the board, it'll go in a PowerPoint. So if any of you want to start, if you put anything on format, anything, like you can stick it in a Word doc, PowerPoint, whatever, we can kind of move it over to there. We can kind of put it all together
I'm
there.
happy to play editor, kind of piece it together.
Yeah. So, and I'm fine with everybody interacting before then. If you guys are like sitting at home tonight and you're like, I'm going through some of this stuff and here's what I want to make sure we include, let's email it to each other and kind of get ahead of it so we don't have to do it all.
Just to stay ahead of you in regard to that, remember that everything has to be done in the sunshine. So if you guys are communicating back and forth, that would be a violation of sunshine.
We're doing the, like we have been though, right? Like if we're sending to.
You would have to send to staff directly.
Yeah,
Just not to each other directly.
That's what I meant to say that. Yeah.
So
like
I
send-
can't text Jake, hey, here's paragraph, my comments.
Everything
I
would
have to
have-
bring it to the meeting.
Everything would go through staff. Staff could
Yeah.
then disseminate, but it also can't be a straw man type of scenario where staff is acting as your intermediary to communicate with one another.
So we do that in the working meeting. We're all here together and then,
Right.
hey, here's a paragraph. Why don't we put this one in?
But you can send a document full of a bunch of stuff that you want to do
Out to everyone.
and send it out to Brandon and
Oh,
they'll
okay.
disperse it to the rest of us.
Jake, this is Cliff. Do we have
Yep.
some guidelines of the different issues we're gonna look at? Can
So,
we-
I mean, I think it's
who's
really,
gonna be assigned what potentially, so we're not all over the place?
yeah, I mean, I think that you know, we're going to basically put together a review of what we've done here over the past, 6 months or so, however long it's been. So, you know, I personally, I think that we're going to go back to that sheet that we started with in September, where it's like, hey, look at all these nonprofits that are wasting money that I'm going to, little color coded. So I'm like, hey, this one over here are questionable. These ones are bad. I think that we can have a section of best practices, like we've been talking about. You know, I do think there's a few things that I can consider wins out of this committee. You know, some of the discussions we've had with the chief technology officer about redoing subscriptions, things like that. So maybe, hey, we can point out some accomplishments, but also, I think really we're digging into some of the line items of the contracting and pointing things out. And then anything else that you guys want to include, recommendations to the commission.
And this is where we want to pursue, what we would like to work with.
And it will end with us saying, hey, we have all these other things we'd like to do if you will allow us to and expand our powers. I think that's what
I think it's important that it be focused and supported and concise and that it's not like, for lack of a better term, all willy-nilly, you know what I
Sure.
mean? Like I'd like to keep it very structured and very neutral and fact-based.
Sure. So if there's anything before we get into this workshop that you want to send over or, to keep us structured and everything, I'm more abstract. Creative.
I'd like to see,
PowerPoint.
I'd
What's
like
that,
to see the staff give us copies of those things again. And so we have something to work from, so we're not just coming from all different directions.
Well, I'm sorry, what would you like copies of?
Well, this list of the items that we're gonna look at, and, obviously, I've got a couple things that I've looked at. Bob's got things, everybody's got things that they've looked at, but are there areas that we're gonna focus on and try to be a little more organized before we go into this meeting?
I'd like to organize before we get in.
Kind of thinking that the meeting itself would kind of serve that purpose to really sort of sit down, narrow our scope, figure out exactly what we want to include and who's doing what. Like I kind of envision that happening at the meeting, which was why I suggested we have the meeting earlier. So that's a good point though, what do you think as far as the structure of that? Should we come in prepared or should the meeting serve the purpose of?
I think that everybody should come in with kind of what they want to present, right? Like everything that's important to you on this committee, things that you've noted, whatever it is, let's bring it to the table. So then we'll have a whole bunch of stuff and then we can have a discussion on what's important, what we want to include on it.
Define
How we
the
wanna-
scope.
yeah.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah. Cause I have some things that I'm like, yeah, we need to go in, talk about. So does that work for everybody? Any other comments on how we're going to go about this? All right. So do I need a motion for that meeting? Brandon, a motion? Do I need a motion to set it up? No,
No. You've asked for it, we'll set up.
And that's a Tuesday, the 9th?
it's a Monday.
And that will be noticed.
All right.
Do we need to do anything in that regard or do you
Yeah,
just
it's
take
Monday.
care of that?
But we'll take care of it like we've done all the others. This will be just this will be a meeting this will be on the agenda to do.
And my agenda is just workshop or, work, put together
Yeah.
presentation. So that's my
We'll
draft. It's
ask you
approved.
to approve this meeting's minutes. and then move into that and then allow for public comment if anyone shows up. And then this will be run standard, just with this as the agenda.
Okay.
That we don't call it a workshop because you can't vote at workshops.
That's right. Meeting. It's a workshop meeting. I guess I don't think we don't have anybody else on Zoom right now, public comment wise. Okay, I see no public comment. Does anybody else have any additional discussion items? Anything else they want to talk about before we close this meeting?
One, not a discussion, but just a checklist. Well, you mentioned some of your audits. Could we get the context so we could read through those? Did I understand that correctly?
The risk assessments, can we get those before the 9th?
Oh, sure,
Yeah.
sure. Yeah, no.
Just give me a link so we could get in our sign. And then also, the last couple of weeks, I've had difficulty getting back into the contracts database. And I left a voicemail for, so I'm just, is the right, Leslie, or do you?
No, what we'll have, having,
Me too. I can't think of it.
I'll have her contact.
Right over, okay. I think I left her a voicemail the other day because I had the number next to it and I just haven't been able to get back in.
You know, that's
In the
something
last couple of
close or anything, right? All those files and everything, yeah.
Oh, it's still there. You remember, you also have your thumb drives, which is still up to date, but I'll have that. I'll get her.
That would be good. I just,
Thank you for saying something.
all right.
You got thumb drives. You got thumb drives?
Didn't y'all get the thumb? We give you guys thumb drives?
I don't recall that, but that doesn't mean it didn't happen.
Okay. Because
No, I don't have one either.
Sorry, we gave thumb drives to the committees. Sorry, to the
state.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, but you have access.
Yeah, we have
To
access.
the
Cloud
contracts
access.
They were
database.
here and they were meeting, so they needed it. Politics.
Yeah.
Well, group. I'll have them get a hold of you and get you back in.
That'd be great.
Thanks.
You know, maybe I'm probably doing something wrong. I mean, it could be, I haven't been in, I was in for a few weeks back, and then I just haven't been able to get this.
Apologies.
That's all right.
Please tell us, okay?
Okay.
And just one follow-up from last month, I went to ask Joseph if you had figured out if there were any Title VII violations that potentially elevated to the level of EEOC.
I have not personally. I could check back with my office and see if any report with the department that deals with that and see if they have
Okay.
a report for that.
All right.
I'm looking back at any of our follow-up tasks here and see if there's anything else that we covered everything else, I believe. Okay, unless anybody else has anything, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn for today.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting is closed. Thank you, everybody. We will see everybody back here on the 9th.
Yes.
Get this report done.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
All coming to the final. Something.
You.
Thank you, Brandon.
I need to when that trauma,
Oh, yeah, haven't done
make
it.
sure I can't, it's been a very long.
Parking, is there any parking slip?
Oh, thank you.
Oh, that would be
Otherwise, you're all getting stuck down there.
Oh, that would be.
No, don't do that. It's like $2 to park in the garage.
It's too,
I know.
the garage is too difficult. They write me tickets for some reason. Okay.